Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Mastock talking about reciprocity.com, the sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build. The E is spelled with a 3. And in this particular video, I really wanted to talk about dominant designs and how do dominant designs actually emerge and make our world simpler, but sometimes make our world worse off, right? So what exactly is a dominant design? I'm going to go into defining what a dominant design is, then get into, what are some of the implications of that? And then finally, maybe what is the long run choice or decision, consumer choice outcomes that we have from having a dominant design. So I'm a professor of innovation and strategy and entrepreneurship, and I really wanted to get into talking to you exactly what this is, because I think it's a really important and interesting topic as well, right? So what exactly is a dominant design? Well, dominant design is where a specific feature, specific design with some subset of features actually emerges and becomes the de facto standard in a product sector. So there's a lot of different reasons why this occurs, and I'll get into exactly what there is. But there's generally, at what point does it become the standard, right? At where we can say that, oh, this is the standard. Well, there's not really a general consensus, I believe. So it's somewhere around right when you're about, 40%. If a technology or product sort of consumes about 40% or, maybe 60% of the product market in terms of how we understand, then we can suggest that that is probably a dominant design. So there's lots of different examples of this, right? So a chair, for example, has 4 legs. It doesn't have 3. It doesn't have 5, right? Why not? 5 is probably wasteful. 3 is called a stool, but we can sort of classify them differently, and it's all just perception, right? We can have 3-legged chairs in a kitchen table, for example. Or at a kitchen table. We can have things like the iPhone, right? We know what the iPhone or a cell phone looks like. Smartphone at this point looks like. It looks like the iPhone, which actually came from the Palm Pilot, believe it or not. That basic design of the touchscreen with the circle on the bottom, that is pretty much a dominant design. It has emerged across all the designs. If you manufacture anything that doesn't look like that, then it's going to be harder to sell, right? It's going to be much more difficult to sell. Consumers don't know what to make of it. There are lots of different things, right? A plate, why is a plate circular? If I say plate, you know exactly what I mean, right? So that is where there's a circular plate versus a square plate. Square plates are kind of unusual. You do see them once in a while, but they're definitely not the dominant, right? If I say a fork, you know that there's probably 3 or 4 prongs on it, and there's maybe if I created a fork with 5 prongs, 6 prongs, people would think that was really peculiar and really strange, right? So there's definitely a dominant design there. A chimney, if I said a chimney, you know exactly what it means in your mind, what a chimney looks like, right? On a house, it's sort of a square thing or a rectangular thing that comes out. Why is it not octagon or, circular? Yeah, I don't know at this point, right? It probably has to do with how easy it used to be built, but now we can build all sorts of different things, right? So there's a lot of different reasons. There's a lot of different products out there that I can just keep rambling on for days and days about what exactly is a dominant design or what it looks like. But I'm not going to say that here. But basically it means that in a product or technology sector, there is some sort of consensus of what arrives of how we understand what something looks like. So we have in our mind, this is exactly as consumers and as manufacturers, we try to sort of replicate what consumers want. We have it in our mind. This is exactly what consumers prefer, right? So prior to the emergence of a dominant design, there's usually what's called an area of ferment. This is where there's a lot of uncertainty about what consumers prefer, right? So we try all sorts of companies will try all sorts of different things. They're not quite sure exactly what we want or what they want. So they're just going to try all sorts of different sort of designs. And then eventually one takes off for whatever reason. And it could be just that there was a lot of marketing. Could be historical events that happened, right? So some historical event happened and all of a sudden everybody prefers one over the other. There could be sort of politics involved where you can get a you can get you can get lobbying to occur, and the lobbyist will get the government to prefer one or the other, and then it becomes more cost effective to produce the other, and then that becomes the sort of dominant design and emerges over time. There's lots of different reasons why this happens, but essentially when there's this era of ferment, we're trying all sorts of different things, and then there is something that pops out at the end, right? And what pops out at the end is generally one or, sometimes maybe two products is very uncommon, but maybe like one sort of set of features design emerges that people sort of understand this is exactly what that product looks like, right? So basically, when that happens, there's usually what happens is usually like a winner-take-all market. This is where there is it's called either a monopoly or duopoly structure. Maybe it is kind of, that there's essentially a one or two firms that are clearly dominating the space, right? That nobody else understands or nobody else sort of competes. And you're like, those other ones, they don't really matter in that product space, right? So search, for example, if I say search and search engines, you automatically think, one or two, you automatically think of Google for sure. It contains, it sort of captures about 60 to 70% of the market. And you also think about Yahoo as well, and that's really far behind. But if I mention Bing, who uses Bing, right? Nobody uses Bing. That's Microsoft's product. They tried to enter that space for a long, long time, and it's really hard for them to get into that space. They're locked out. It's basically a winner-take-all market because we know that Google search is where to go to, and we also know that is a better product. So there's another sort of what's called like a feedback loop that happens as well. And the more that you use that one kind of product, more that consumers prefer that one kind of product, the more money that the company is making, the more that they can invest and make that product better. And so you end up getting this sort of feedback loop where more and more people are choosing that one particular product, and it gets better, and more that the firms are making it better as well because more people are choosing it, and it emerges very rapidly sometimes that there is a winner-take-all market where one is dominating in that space, right? So this means because that there is all these kind of reasons and factors of why that actually happens, and there's all this uncertainty, it means that often the best product doesn't necessarily always win in a marketplace. So the best technologically sound product might not win, right? That's one thing we do know. There's reasons for that, and I'm not going to get into all those specifics, but basically that there is kind of like path dependency, or there's historical events that happen in the past that can lead the one firm to dominate that space depending on what's happening. Now, it's really difficult to determine beforehand exactly who is going to win in a product space and what's going to happen. However, we do know sort of looking backwards that you can sort of understand that there is a winner-take-all market, right? So, and there's very large, what ends up happening is that even though that there's so much selection at the beginning and so much choice at the beginning, there is often very large differences in the outcomes of what actually emerges at the end. So one will dominate in a space and everybody else will not dominate in a space. And they could go bankrupt, or they can kind of just sort of tread water and not really grow and become dominant in a particular space, right? So what this means, and this has really interesting implications on sort of consumer choice and sort of democracy, right? If you think about it, that we think that democracy, there's this wonderful thing, or, even capitalism, there's this wonderful thing that we have as much selection as we would like, and we can choose from anything we'd like to choose from. However, because of our sort of behavioral tendencies and, our decision making to be completely rational, we're being completely rational as consumers, as companies, where they're maximizing their profits, the companies are maximizing their profits, as well as the consumers are doing exactly what they want to do. They're choosing the best product that suits them at that time. That because of this, what ends up happening is that there's often one particular product or one particular dominant design that emerges at the end, and that reduces our overall choice in the long run, right? We have less choice to choose from. And what that usually means, I mean, economists have shown this for years and years and years. The less choice we have, the worse off we are in the long run. So for example, with the cell phone, if you think about having a cell phone or a smartphone, we think of having a smartphone as only the one standard at this moment, right? That is, has this one dominant design. However, that's really expensive. There is a huge other population that exists, or other sort of subset of the population that can't afford a smartphone, or the pricing plan that they have on the smartphone. So they're sort of locked out of the market, or they end up spending way too much for a cell phone relative to their income, right? So there's a huge sort of sector, a huge sort of category of people that have unmet needs. So when this happens, when there's all these unmet needs, then we kind of have an opportunity. What's really cool at that moment, even though that we're all worse off in that particular moment, that creates an opportunity for somebody else, an innovator, an entrepreneur, to come in and say, wait a minute, there is all these people that are being underserved over here because of this dominant design. I can serve this market in a different way, and then pretty soon you can solve that particular problem. So it might be a dominant design, might have sort of a temporary situation where we're all worse off and we're not necessarily better off by any means, but there are moments when that happens, when you think that everybody is getting one particular product. You can be, as an entrepreneur or an innovator, you can look at that and you can say, well, wait a minute, everybody is choosing that one particular thing. There's all these people with these unmet needs at this particular moment. We can go in and we can serve that one product market. Okay, so that is a really interesting thing that happens with dominant designs. And I encourage you to research and look at some of this stuff a little bit more. There's really cool insights that are happening with that. So if you like these videos, you want to give me an old thumbs up, you can do that with this video. I do appreciate it. It is very helpful. I'm trying to get the word out about reciprocity. The E is spelled with a 3. It's a sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build. And you can definitely go check that out. You probably get some very discounted proofreading services on there once you look at it. It's also going to help out science. I have some very long-term objectives of helping out science with, if it ever makes any sort of profits that it can, it'll eventually, I would love to start giving graduate school scholarships and stuff like that, graduate scholarships to people. So that's my end goal with this and where I'm taking this. So I do appreciate everything. Make sure you watch some of the older videos. They are very helpful. If you found this helpful, especially every Thursdays, there is stuff that's very relevant to you. I try to put out something that's interesting, as well as Saturdays. You could look up stuff that is more relevant to having small businesses and strategy and sort of startup strategy, which can help you in the long run. So that's it. Have a good day. Take care. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.